Our next speaker and our guide to this part of the world is Sue Carnahan. Sue is a botanist, naturalist, and photographer who has a passion for looking at things really closely and then taking amazing photographs to show you what she just saw. She lives and botanizes from Santa Cruz County near the international border. And her most recent publication is a flora of the Solero Ranch, which is a region in the southern reaches of the Santa Rita Mountains. And that's available online at the Kenosha website. And you can check the online program for the symposium to find the spelling of that, so you can check that out. She's also the co-author with Richard Felger and Jesus Sanchez Escalante of a soon-to-be published Flora of the Guaymas region of Sonora, Mexico. So she's clearly well-versed in both sides of the border, and her title is Blurring the Borders, Cool Plants of the Arizona-Sonora Desert Frontier.
Thanks everyone for attending this evening. I'm going to be talking this evening about plants along the Arizona-Sonora border, where I do most of my botanizing. I'm going to try to cover a range of families, just kind of spotlighting some of my favorite plants and some interesting plants that occur near the border, across the border. So here we go. First off, if you don't know that title slide plant, Mimosa Daiso, that just means you have not traveled around in Santa Cruz County near the southern border of Arizona. It is a very common summer blooming shrub, a bit prickly, but not as bad as the wait a minute bush, which I'm not going to show you. Anyway, it's a lovely site, very common in the borderlands as well as down into Sonora. So here is a look at the border region. I've drawn the Arizona-Sonora border in green, and I'm not going to be talking about the Sonoran Desert, which is out to the west. And I'm also not going to focus too much on the Sky Islands. Jack Dash will be talking about those more this evening. The area I'm going to focus on is right here in the middle of the border, mostly Santa Cruz County. A little bit of Pima County on the western part of that oval, a little bit of Cochise County on the eastern part of that oval, and a little bit of Sonora at the bottom. Some of the mountain ranges I may mention would be the Baboquiviri Mountains, the Santa Rita Mountains, the Huachuca Mountains, the Patagonia Mountains, and then the three smaller ranges that all sort of merge west of Nogales, the Pajarito, Atascosa, and Tumacacri Mountains. Here are the biotic communities as described by Brown and Lowe. You can see out to the west is Sonoran Desert. The orange area is the Arizona Upland. That's the Sonoran Desert subdivision that you would find around Tucson. The widespread brown region is semi-desert grassland or scrub grassland. And the green area is evergreen woodland that gets up into our Sky Islands. At the very tops of some of those mountains, you'll find in blue the montane conifer forest. And going eastward, some richer brown area is the Plains and Great Basin grassland. And finally, pink, the Chihuahuan desert scrub coming in on the eastern edge of the oval that I've drawn at least. Now you'll notice down in Sonora, some fingers of orange that are sort of reaching up towards Arizona. Those are Sinaloan thorn scrub. And many people would argue that there are pockets of thorn scrub vegetation present in Arizona as well. So what does this terrain look like on the ground? Well, it's very dissected. It's very hilly. There's very little long flat areas, a lot of rocky slopes, a lot of grassland, a lot of woodland, some seasonal drainages, some permanent water. This is actually an oblique view, a satellite view of Sycamore Canyon in the Pajarito Mountains, which, as I mentioned, are west of Nogales, right along the border. In fact, we are looking north in this view from Sonora, Mexico, up into Arizona. You can see the canyon goes right down, it flows south, it goes right down and crosses the border. If you have not been to Sycamore Canyon in the Pajarito Mountains, you are really missing out. This is one of the most special places along the border that I could think of. It's accessed from a road called Ruby Road or Arizona Highway, State Highway 289 out of Rio Rico. You could spend months, years exploring Sycamore Canyon and its environs, and you would find special plants, rare birds, rare insects, rare reptiles, and just beautiful scenery. Here's kind of a postcard view. On the right, you see a photo taken in Sycamore Canyon in the late summer. There was some permanent water, nice wildflowers growing along the water, and some very steep hillsides. I spend a lot of my time climbing up and down steep hillsides, and I have to tell you, it's where some of the coolest plants grow. On the left, a couple of photos of Holden Canyon, a smaller, lesser known canyon in the same area that you'll hear more about in a minute. So in Sycamore Canyon, one of the specialty plants is Lobelia Laxaflora, which you have to go there in around maybe August to see in Sycamore Canyon. And you'll see by the map down in the lower left that Lobelia Laxaflora only occurs in a very tiny corner of Arizona. Sycamore Canyon is pretty much it as far as I know. Otherwise, it's widespread down through western Mexico, and it's also down the Baja Peninsula. So Sycamore Canyon, that's a place you have to go to see a plant like this in the United States. A less showy plant, but still very cool because it's our only Arizona native bromeliad, is Tillandsia recurvata, or small ball moss. This plant can be found in Sycamore Canyon and some neighboring canyons. In Sycamore, grows right on the rock. That photo in the upper left is taken in Sycamore Canyon. But also Tillandsia is very known to grow on oak branches and juniper branches. Those other photos on the slide were taken in Sonora, all taken in Sonora, Mexico. Tillandsia is not restricted to just the border regions in Arizona. It grows in the Patagonia Mountains, along Sonoita Creek, I think up in the Galliero Mountains, and probably some other places. But it is a special plant to come across down near the border, and especially in Sycamore Canyon. Now, probably, I should have checked this with Wendy Hodgson, but probably the smallest agave in Arizona would be agave parviflora. Not completely restricted to Santa Cruz County, but not very common, and it just gets a little bit into Pima County on the west side of Santa Cruz County. It's a very compact, short, kind of chubby little agave. It has white stripes on its foliferous leaves. You can see that. It tends to grow on these sort of scrappy, gravelly slopes. I've never seen it in a rich plant assemblage. Maybe it doesn't get along well with other plants. I don't know. At any rate, you can find it in and around Sycamore Canyon again. A couple of these photos were taken in Warsaw Canyon, which is a canyon just to the west of Sycamore, also goes down to the Sonoran border. You just drive down the Warsaw Canyon Road and you watch for some sort of gravelly looking soil that looks like it has nothing growing in it except maybe a mesquite tree. And you get out and look around and you'll find a whole population of these tiny little cute agaves. Another easy place to see this agave is in the town of Patagonia on Blue Heaven Road, right across from the Patagonia Sonoita Creek Sanctuary. Drive that road or walk that road and watch for a kind of gravelly, scrappy bank, comes right down to the road, and there's a nice population of these agaves right there. So last summer, last fall, Jack Dash, whom you're going to be hearing from shortly, Jack Dash and I decided to make a foray into Warsaw Canyon, and our target was getting into Holden Canyon, a smaller canyon outside to the west of Warsaw. First thing we did was stop and look at these agave parvifloras because Jack hadn't seen them, and so that was fun. The next thing we came across was a big surprise, a big population of Croton ciliato glandulifer. Now, I don't know about you, but this is an absolutely wonderful croton. I just never get tired of seeing these long yellow glands on the leaf margins and up under the inflorescence. It's a very cool plant. It's a shrub. Down in Mexico, I think it could actually even get kind of weedy. It's pretty common through Sonora. But in Arizona, you see the map in the lower right corner. It's only known from the region of Warsaw Canyon, Sycamore Canyon, and a very small population that I found on the Solero Ranch, which is the center of Santa Cruz County. So who could not love that croton? One of the things that Jack Dash and I were looking for in our excursion to Holden Canyon and Warsaw was Pasiflora Arizonica. It's a a passion flower in Arizona that you just don't run across that easily. Jack had found the Paciflora Mexicana, he'd found Bryanioides, he goes up and down lots of water courses, canyons, that kind of thing. But Arizonica he had not come across yet. And I mentioned to him, and I said, the only places I've seen it are rocky slopes, rocky ridge tops, rocky hillsides, you know, not in a nice, rough, lush canyon. So we make our hike over into Holden Canyon. And at some point there was a big rock boulder heap on the side of the canyon, and there was a mallow up on it that I was interested in. So I clambered up on the rocks to look at the mallow, and lo and behold, down among the boulders was a lovely Pasiflora Arizonica. So that's what it likes. It likes boulders and rocks. It's not going to be down in the lush green canyon. And that was really fun. Jack got to see it. We got to get specimens. We enjoyed the plant. And then we continued down Holden Canyon. So here's those photos on the left of Holden Canyon again. And you notice the photo in the upper left has a big geologic dike. The canyon cuts at right angles through that. And when you get to that point in the canyon, if you don't want to get your feet wet, you either climb up around the east side of the canyon, which is where those two chimneys are, or the west side, which is where this photo was taken from. So Jack and I decided randomly we would climb the west side. It's really a tough, scrambly climb, and you're just sort of on your hands and knees, and you're holding on to little pieces of bunch grass and rocks and trying not to kill the plants. Botanists are sometimes very hard on the landscape. And on the way up, I passed a really nice population of Anodicar Anatoflora, which is a pretty uncommon annual anota, known from scattered collections across Southeast Arizona, but I had only come across it just the prior year for the first time. So anyway, I saw all these plants on the way up, but there was no way I could grab one, let alone put it in my press. So I just looked at them and continued on. We scrambled to the top of our climb, and we were rewarded with a chiltepine, the native Arizona bird pepper plant. Again, a plant that you just don't come across unless you're wandering around, climbing up slopes. Rocky slopes are good. You've got to get off the main trail and really kind of hunt around in the landscape. Jack had never found one before. I had never found one before. We were very excited. We sat down, took pictures, took some small samples, had some snacks, and enjoyed ourselves. So after that, we had to climb down the other side of the buttress back to the canyon. We were really just sort of skidding on our boots and our rear ends, going down this dirt slope. And what happens, but we see another population of anotas, and I skid right through it and take one out with my boot. So now I have a specimen, grab it in my hand, and I keep sort of skidding down the hillside. And the next thing I go skidding by are a couple of Graptopedulum bartramii. This is a real specialty stone crop from the Arizona-Sonora border region. Graptopedulum has a sister species, Graptopedulum roosevii, which blooms in the spring, but Graptopedulum bartramii blooms in the fall. We were there in the fall. The plant that I skidded by, you see my hand in the lower right photo. I'm really just trying to keep myself from falling off the hillside, grabbing my phone, trying to snap a snapshot as we continued our sort of fall down this hill. But you don't have to do a death-defying clamber and skid to find this plant. You can actually find it in Sycamore Canyon. There are numerous populations in the Santa Rita Mountains, as well as elsewhere in Southeast Arizona. It's somewhat restricted to Southeast Arizona. The Sonoran population is much less well known. There are some people trying to change that right now, doing more surveys to find and map and document those plants. But it's a pretty cool plant from the border region. Okay, we're out of our death-defying scramble and we're just into some really pretty plants. So Lagacia Decipions, doll's head. A lovely shrub-sized composite that is not quite restricted to Santa Cruz County in Arizona. There's quite a few populations in the Baboquiviri Mountains in Pima County, as well as some smaller ranges between Santa Cruz County and the Baboquiviris. Down in Sonora, it's quite widespread, where it often grows along water courses and roadsides and just any kind of thicket full of lots of plants, you'll find Lagacia decipiens. In Arizona, what is it like? Rocky slopes, bouldery slopes, cliffs. It's got to have some sun, so a sunny south-facing or east or west-facing rocky slope. Another rock-loving plant. If you have not come across bamboo muley, it means you have not been climbing on rocky slopes. That's where you find it. Rock cliffs, rock ledges, boulder heaps, boulder slopes. I think it grows, well, I don't know why it grows up there. It prefers that habitat. It's out of the reach of cows. It's almost out of the reach of botanists. That keeps it from going extinct, I think. So it's a spring blooming grass. And in the spring, it looks sort of brown and not all that exciting. In a good monsoon year, which we did not have this year, a good monsoon year, it can look like that plant in the upper left. It's sort of like a big green teddy bear. You just want to hug it. It's a wonderful, wonderful big grass. So last summer, I was finishing up the flora that I had been working on of the Solero Ranch in central Santa Cruz County. And I had made a determination I needed to do some tougher, steeper hikes to find, I don't know, just to make sure I covered my whole flora area, which I never would be managing to cover anyway. It's just too big and too dissected. However, I had one day just sort of worked my way up this rocky canyon, thrashed through a bunch of plants and was tired. And I thought, well, I'm going to take a shortcut back, just hop over the ridge back to my truck. Well, it was a terrible decision. I was tripping over ocotillo stems. I was wedging my boot in rocks. I took a face plant, broke one of my hiking poles in half. Didn't hurt myself, but there I was just feeling like, what a bad decision. About 5 minutes later, I'm face to face with a little population of these sort of prickly looking shrubs with purple flowers with a yellow star in the center. I thought, I know this plant from Arizona-Sonora. I don't know it from Arizona. Well, sure enough, this is Selenium Hustonii, used to be Selenium tridynamum, that's now a synonym. Not known for the US until I literally stumbled on these shrubs. So that was pretty exciting. And to make it even more exciting, a few months later, a friend of mine, Sky Jacobs, was camping over in the Biotic Mountains, and he emailed me some photos after his weekend, including a photo of Selenium Hustonii. So there are 2 populations now known from the United States. And the Biotic Mountains are far enough away from my flora area that there are bound to be other plants somewhere in between. So you've got to get out there and just go stumbling around and take some of those lousy, brushy, rocky hikes to find some stuff. Another discovery last spring, again, climbing a bouldery slope in my flora area in Santa Cruz County, was a woody perennial vine with blackish brownish flowers. I didn't recognize it. I knew it was kind of interesting. I sent some photos to the milkweed guy, Mark Fishbein, who identified it as what's known as Lobelia Laxaflora. Again, not documented for the United States. So that was really exciting. After some back and forth and waiting, that was springtime, waiting for the summer when the plants were really in nice flowering form. We got some better specimens of it. Mark was able to come out and take a look at the plants. I found some fruiting specimens. You see the fruits in the lower right. And we learned that actually a gentleman named Dennis Caldwell had found a piece of this plant in the Santa Rita Mountains in 2002. And he had it in his house and he mailed it to Mark, and Mark said, yep, that's the same plant. So 2002, it was in the Santa Ritas. I have looked for those plants. I have not been able to find them, but maybe they're still there. We hope they are. And then a further twist to the story is that according to Mark Fishbein, these plants, and they're Sonoran plants, there's a lot of these plants known from Sonora and collected from Sonora, are really a separate species from the true Lobelia Laxaflora. So we're going to be writing it up and describing it as a new species, and both of these Lobelias will go into a new genus, Polystemma. So stay tuned for that one. Now, I'm quickly wrapping up. I think I'm running short on time, but we'll look at some wannabe plants for Arizona and some historical plants. Diphysia Thurberi is a plant that is on the Arizona flora list, but that's because it was collected in 1882 in the Huachuca Mountains, and not since that time. So whoever is out there exploring the Huachuca Mountains, you've got to be looking for this plant. And if you're in the Mule Mountains or the Patagonia Mountains or the Chiricahua Mountains or the Santa Rita Mountains, keep an eye out for this plant, or Sycamore Canyon. My photo was taken from Sonora, about 50 miles south of the border. A number of years ago, I had the opportunity to visit Cajon Bonito in Rancho Los Ojos, south of Douglas, Arizona, in Sonora. And I happened to collect this fern because I like ferns. Once it was ID'd, it turned out to be Thalipteris pilosa, which was a big jump in its range. You see that the dots on the map down lower in the map are at Arizona-Sonora, and my little red mark near the border is a big leap northward for this plant. What that means is in between those dots, there are more plants to be found, and possibly north of these plants in the US, we could find this fern. Boat spine acacia. If you've been to Sonora, you've seen boat spine acacia. It's pretty weedy, it's really common. It has these spines that sort of puff out into boat-shaped structures. They're not seed pods, even though they might fool you to look like that. Very common plant. And a number of years ago, my husband and I were waiting in line at the border to cross into the US, and he looked up and said, "That looks like boat spine acacia." Sure enough, there's a plant about 50 meters south of the actual international border in Nogales, Sonora. And I went back there in a greener season. We were there in December. I went back the following summer, found the plant. It's not a very exciting and happy looking plant, but there it is in that photo on the right. And you can see the trucks in the overpass in the distance, and they are in line to cross at the Mariposa port of entry west of Nogales. So here's a plant. Again, it's kind of weedy. This probably seed just fell off a car or truck or out of somebody's pant cuff. And there it is, right near the border. Next year, there's going to be one in Nogales, Arizona, I bet. Years ago, apparently, there may have been one south of Green Valley at the Canoa rest area on Interstate 19, according to the late, great Santa Cruz botanist, Jack Kuiper. But it wasn't vouchered that we know of, so we just have to keep an eye out for a new one. I'll just leave you with this last bit of eye candy, my favorite Datura, Datura quercifolia, oak leaf Datura, named for its leaf shape, obviously. A plant of Southeast Arizona, and its range extends up and northeastward into New Mexico. But I just love its little purple tinged flowers and its spiky, spiky fruit. And that's all I have. Thanks very much for listening.
Great. Thanks so much, Sue. I'm sorry to have interrupted you there at the end, but we were getting close on the time. So, wow, what a nice collection of beautiful plants and what great stories from the field. We have a couple questions for you. Wendy Hudson wanted to know if you ate the chiltepeps that you found.
We did not. They were very, very green. The photo that I have showing a ripe fruit is Les Landrum's photo from somewhere else. I don't know where. So no, we didn't eat them.
Okay. What is the impact of the border and attendant surveillance technology all along the border, such as is happening at Quito Vaquito, on the future of plants in this region? What's your thought on that?
Well, the actual construction area, of course, is basically destroyed by construction and trucks and roads and wall and continued activity driving back and forth. There will also likely be a lot of spread of weeds along that corridor, because anywhere that you have traffic, you have a lot of weeds. Certainly some plants that we don't even know are there will get wiped out by the construction. As far as plants still moving back and forth across the border, some of that will still happen. Many plants are dispersed by air, by birds, by animals, although some of these animals can no longer cross if there's really a big wall up. So it's really yet to be seen. I think some of the worst part of it is the destruction of the areas, especially some of those remote canyons, Guadalupe Canyon in southeast corner of Arizona, Quito Vaquito Spring, Sycamore Canyon. There'll be a wall right through that that crossing. So it's pretty tragic.
Another one of our participants wanted to know if you could provide some general directions for how to get into Sycamore Canyon. If you were going to go out and try to do a little botanizing in Sycamore Canyon, how do you get there?
It's best to probably get a Forest Service map for one thing, whether it's on your phone or a paper map. But you would take Ruby Road, Arizona State Highway 289, west from Interstate 19 in Rio Rico. And you're going to drive about 45 minutes, something. I can't give real specific directions like that, but someone can email me and I can give better, you know, a GPS waypoint. It's on any Forest Service map. You can see it. There's generally a parking area, and you just start hiking southward into the gentle canyon at the start. Hope that's helpful, but I'm happy to take emails on that if people want to know more.
Great, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Sue, for sharing your field experience and your beautiful plant photos with us.
Thank you.